Just drive it like you stole it.
I did steal.
We never expect too much from games based on movie franchises because that's probably the safest bet. Every now and then a game comes along that shows exactly why titles based on films have such a bad reputation. Shoddy programming, poor presentation, and a host of other problems plague these titles, and make one wonder whether the guys who make these games get any sleep at night after producing such horrid products. Case in point, Fast and Furious Showdown. This lamentable title borrows from all the Fast and Furious movies, which, in all honesty, aren't exactly the pinnacle of cinematic arts to begin with. It places the player in a series of disjointed missions that are cobbled together by a poorly conceived narrative. In the end, what the player essentially does is drive around in a variety of cars, traveling through a number of locations scattered around the globe, trying to outrun or outgun numerous witless opponents. There are a variety of different mission types which blur together in a gaming nightmare. The graphics are, to be blunt, lifeless and dull. Everything could have benefited from more detail, from the lackluster car models through to the unimaginative, repetitive tracks. While a little more effort went into the vehicles that the player has to drive around in, enemies are copied and pasted over and over again. This leads to the player taking on a bunch of faceless thugs with the brain power of particularly unintellectual gnats. At times, the player's sidekick, or if the player is particularly sadistic, their multiplayer partner, will hang out of the vehicle and shoot at bad guys. The animations are reminiscent of badly conceived robots from pulp 60s sci-fi movies. The enemies returning fire are even worse, looking like well-armed cardboard cutouts strapped to vehicles for intimidation purposes. The tracks are dull and boring, with elements repeated almost as often as the enemy character models are. Add to this a poor damage model and things just slide from bad to worse. As far as voice acting goes, well, it has the depth and emotion of a computer text-to-voice performance. There are one or two actors that stand out, but for the most part the dialogue is entirely handed up, or flatter than the paper the script is written on. The sound effects aren't too bad, although they aren't exactly exemplary either. In short, the game doesn't offer any kind of wow factor in terms of presentation. Fast and Furious Showdown expects more from the player than it actually allows the player to be able to do. It's a bit like asking someone to build a skyscraper with matchsticks. There are times when the game needs fast reactions and lightning reflexes, but the overall engine just doesn't allow for that. The vehicles feel sluggish and the controls seem to be unresponsive. In short, it's a chore to play. Following a fairly simple principle of kill everything that moves, the player is expected to navigate tracks in a limited number of venues. These tracks, aside from getting repetitive, get downright silly in their challenge level. It seems that the tracks were designed for one game and the cars for another. They just don't mesh, and the whole thing ends up feeling rather messy. Add to this things like unpredictable traffic and an extremely elastic opponent AI, and getting anywhere in Showdown just becomes frustrating. It's one thing to have to repeat races because you suck, but it's something completely different when idiot traffic constantly puts paid to your battling your way through an already unwieldy game. And then, when your opponent zooms past you for the win at the last minute, like a chihuahua fired out of a cannon, it adds insult to injury. While the opponent AI is capable of nigh-on superheroic feats of elasticity, the game's partner AI has the intelligence of a particularly stupid brush. In missions that allow the player to choose between driving or shooting at opponents, whichever part of the package is controlled by the AI will result in the player probably losing the level. If the AI is driving, it's driving like a myopic granny overdosed on Prozac. If it's doing the shooting, the gunman will rotate like an automated turret, not picking off the most immediate threats, but rather shooting at whatever enters their field of view, if they even shoot at all. Sometimes the AI forgets to pull the trigger. The player can, in single player mode, jump between the two, but these kind of gymnastics just get annoying. There is a multiplayer aspect to the game, allowing players to work together to achieve goals or take each other on in races. If you con a friend into playing this game with you, you probably won't be friends for long, and sadists who do that kind of damage to their friends' mental well-being don't deserve to have buddies. In terms of plot, well, there isn't much of one. Rather, the game is a disjointed jumble of stuff dragged out of the films, which didn't really have sterling plots to begin with. As far as replay value goes, if you're going to try and finish this one, you'll be spending a long time doing so. Not because the game is particularly long, it isn't, but rather because you're going to have to retry sections over and over and over again. We've seen more than a few stinkers based on movies in the past, but this one takes the cake. It is clearly aimed at those who loved the films, but wouldn't know a good game if it bit them in the nether regions. In short, if you enjoy a challenging driving game combined with copious amounts of action, this isn't the game for you. Not because it doesn't have those elements, but rather because it isn't particularly enjoyable.